Hi, everybody. This is Lee. And I'm reporting about the 500 election observers that have arrived to observe our whole electoral process. There have already been 100 observers here in the United States observing the goings on with our political system, our electoral process. And then now 400 additional observers have arrived to actually watch and monitor the polling sites and the voting itself. And so they are here. There's a meeting in Washington, D.C. David Cobb, Jill Stein's campaign manager for the Green Party, he is actually going to be speaking to that conference or forum. They're going to be meeting, talking about the election system here in the United States and the ways in which the mechanism works or does not work. And then they're going to fan out across the country and make their observations. In 2012, there were about 44 observers. Now there's 500. And the reason being that this election year, this whole election cycle, has been riddled with an unusual amount of abnormalities, irregularities, and just X factors jamming the works and making things extraordinary. To the point that it's caught the attention of the rest of the world. They know what's happening here. And there's a loss of confidence. And so there's observers. They've increased the number due to a sense of urgency about the state of our elections. And so Jill Stein and Ajamu Baraka have a press release on the Green Party website, or the Jill Stein for President website. And it says that Stein and Baraka campaign welcomes international election observers, calls for protection and accountability against voter suppression and irregularities. And I'm going to post a link in the description to a previous video I made on this very issue. The TRICKERATION video is from late September. I think I recorded it September 25th, about a little bit more than a month out. And so you can view that and then see what there's a 15-page document about the mission statement of these observers, the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe, OSCE. They released a 15-page mission statement documenting what their concerns are and why they're here and what their purpose is here to when they're observing. And then I also, in that same video, ran through Election Justice USA's Democracy Lost PDF that tabulated the many irregularities and abnormalities and unusual happenings in our Democratic primary. So I'll post a link in that description. You can get a background information. But I'm going to go back to this press release. And so basically the Green Party, the Stein and Baraka campaign, welcomes these observers to one of the most controversial and bitterly contested elections in recent memory, and they praise those efforts. And so they say that the reasons, some of the reasons why the observers are here and that there's so many is the prohibitive ballot access requirements that restrict the ability of independent parties with limited resources to gain ballot access in many states, and the extremely unbiased media coverage that imposes a blackout on political competition to the two dominant parties, including the use of dishonest smear tactics and disinformation campaigns against independent party candidates. Misleading poll methodologies that systematically undersample young voters as well as independents, who now comprise the largest voting bloc of registered voters. And then legislative acts that result in voter suppression, especially minority voters. reduction of early voting periods, voter IDs, the redlining of polling sites, the elimination of same-day registration, interstate cross-check, etc. Threats of voter intimidation at polling locations, and then use of privately owned and developed voting machine technologies that have proven vulnerable to hacking. And so, again, David Cobb, he's the campaign manager. He's a lawyer. He's also a previous Green Party candidate from 2004. He actually spearheaded a demand for a recount in the state of Ohio in the 2004 election. And so he will represent the Stein Baraka campaign in the OSCE briefing, which is a forum that's going to be held in Washington, D.C. on November 6th, which is tomorrow from the recording of this video. And so David Cobb says that he'll be talking about the lost confidence in government and the integrity of elections, and he will be providing firsthand knowledge about what went wrong in Ohio in 2004, as well as what went wrong in 2016, and how third parties, alternative parties, have played such an important role in championing important policy in the history of the United States, and that there's a concern that the election system is designed to actually prevent alternative parties from rising to power, and what that impact means. And so they're going to be proposing legislation for universal national voter registration, ballot access, and election procedures. And so they're asking for structural change. They want to implement ranked choice voting, which is known and used around the world as instant runoff voting. And that would take the intimidation and fear out of U.S. elections. And in addition to all that, David Cobb is calling for the creation of an independent citizens debate commission, which is supposed to replace the commission controlled by the Democratic and Republican Party operatives, the Commission on Presidential Debates. And so this is something that's going to be happening. The world is watching. The whole world is watching. The observers are going to be watching the polls, the voting systems, the lead up, the actual voting, the aftermath. And then there's going to be interest taken in structural changes to our voting system. So it'll be interesting to see if the monitors, the observers, if that might restore a sense of integrity and security in our voting system. So I'll just post those links in the description, and you can follow up on them and see what you think, and maybe chime in on if you think this will help out at all. Good luck.